So a lot of times, a 100 milliliter bottle of fragrance, a 3.3 ounce bottle, will last you for years to come, especially if you have multiple bottles, right? If you're wearing the same one every day, you still may get some life out of it depending on how many sprays you do end up using with it on a daily basis. But I know a lot of you guys who are watching the channel probably have more than one. You probably have a nice collection built up for yourself. Anywhere from, 5, which is already way better than most people, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 bottles, some crazy number. And so then you start thinking, okay, I have all these bottles. It's going to take me a very long time to wear through them. How many of these will actually hold up years down the road? Now, I'm not talking about the fragrance itself, like expiring. I've talked about that in passing in other videos. As long as you keep them stored in a climate-controlled environment where the temperature doesn't fluctuate and you keep them out of direct sunlight, they're going to last you for years to come. More specifically, what I'm talking about is, are they going to still smell like they work in 5, 10, 15 years from now? Today we have 10 fragrances that will never go out of style. If you purchase these now, they will stand the test of time and they will be good to go years down the road. You don't have to worry about it. You can blow the dust off these bottles several years down the road and they're going to smell like they came out just a couple years ago, or at least they're going to smell like they still hold up and work great. So they all are designers here, and instead of going with ones that are already tried and proven, like, something that comes to my mind immediately is Creed's Green Irish Tweed. Came out in the mid-'80s and it still smells pristine these days, still smells fantastic. Instead of going with stuff like that, we're going to be focusing on newer releases, things that are maybe a bit different, that are just now kind of anchoring themselves with these DNAs, and I can tell that they're going to do great for years to come. I will link them down below to discounters so you can pick them up at a price below retail. And let's just start off with a more affordable one from Ferragamo. This one is Subtle. So it has that kind of cool, twisty, curvy bottle here. Really, really cool look. Has a gradient from blue to clear. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of what this one's going to be about. Ginger, orange, coriander, and lotus are a few of the notes. Really what this one is it's a very clean, musky, and fresh scent. The lotus gives off this watery type of a feel, kind of effect rather. Coriander gives off a little bit of a different twist and kind of adds some texture to it. Still very citrus heavy, still very fresh, very clean. This is something that is so well put together, so modern smelling, but at the same time, it's still going to work years down the road as well. It's not like this one falls into a certain trend where it's popular right now, but then 5 or 10 years later, we're going to forget about that trend. It's clean and fresh. This type of thing is going to work forever. What I like about this one is it is very affordable. Performance is decent for what it is. Quality is also good, all things considered. It's a super easy to wear scent that you can spray on heavily and beat the crap out of, and you're not going to be out a lot of money. You can wear it heavily, wear it as much as you want, and even if you stash this bottle away and it kind of gets forgotten about, 5 years, 10 years later you pick it up, it's still going to smell great. Next up, we have Lacoste Match Point. So I love the bottles on these. There's Match Point Eau de Toilette featured here, and there is a Match Point Eau de Parfum. I'm featuring the Eau de Toilette just for ease of picking up. Basically right now the Eau de Parfum is still newer, not discounted yet, but the EDT is still really, really good. It's got cashmeran, basil, grapefruit, fresh, clean, inviting. It has a tiny bit of a powdery feel to it, but I mean, when you look at the bottle, you look at everything going on here, has a kind of a tennis theme to it with the coloration and of course the cap up there. I don't know, you probably can't even see it really well, but most of you can see the pictures online and you see what this one's based off of. And it really does have just a clean green smell. Reminds me of springtime, reminds me of being outdoors, being just in like a big wide open field with a bunch of grass and trees and wildlife all around. I mean, it smells fantastic. This is so clean, so aromatic, so wearable, and this is going to work for years to come. Next up, we do have a 2020 release, so a couple years old. This one has made its way over to discounters for a really nice price. It's really kind of come down to a very competitive price point here. From Hugo Boss, this one is Boss Bottled number 6, or just Boss Bottled Eau de Parfum, I guess is how I would call it. Apple, cinnamon, and chestnut are a few of the main notes. So you guys have all heard the unfortunate news about Boss Bottled Intense, EDP, EDT, discontinued. I have no idea what possessed them to do that. I mean, that was one of their best sellers, as far as I'm aware anyway, and they discontinued it. So in a way, this is kind of like their replacement, but it's not, you know, a one-to-one similarity between this and Boss Bottled Intense EDP. But I do like this one a lot. It brings that chestnut note in, kind of giving it that new style of men's fragrance a little bit, you know, like the Armani Stronger With You, Replica by the Fireplace. They kind of use the chestnut. You pick up on that in here. You get the cinnamon sweetness, the apple, of course, kind of signature in the line. And so while it does have modern nuances, like a refreshed version of Boss Bottled, I still think this type of thing is going to work very well years down the road. Performance is solid, quality is fantastic, presentation even looks really nice. I love the coloration of the cap, love the look of the bottle as well. The juice has quite a tint to it. As you can see there, that is the actual fragrance liquid. But of course, we all know the coloration a lot of time is just dye, doesn't necessarily indicate like a super rich or super strong fragrance. It's not a beast mode scent, but again, it is respectable performance. And I have to say, I really like how it smells a lot. Very enjoyable stuff that is going to work for a long time. So next up is a fragrance that is very popular, kind of had its moment of fame, so to speak, had its time in the spotlight. A few years back, I remember this one being heavily regarded when I was first starting out. And it's one that it took me a while to get. I just didn't think I was going to be into it that much. I wish I would have gotten it sooner. This one is DUNHILL Icon, and we're just going with the original. They do have a couple others like DUNHILL Icon Elite in the black bottle, I believe is what that one is. And so that would also be a really nice choice as well. That one's more woods heavy, but this one has this grape soda smell. It's got neroli, pepper, nice citrus up top. Literally smells like grape soda. That is not an exaggeration or a fabrication. It's something where once you get that into your head and then you smell this one, you can't unsmell it. I think of fizzy, sparkling grape soda on a warm spring or summer day every time I smell this stuff, and honestly, I'm okay with it. So it's been out for a while. It's had its time in the spotlight, like I mentioned earlier, and I think this is something that is such a gentleman's fragrance, you know? Even though it has that kind of fizzy grape soda type of smell, it still has this refined maturity to it, you know, something that a gentleman would wear. It doesn't smell like something that a kid or a teenager necessarily would wear, if that makes sense. Even though it sounds a little bit strange, grape soda and then gentleman smelling, it works. It pulls it off very well. It's a men's floral in a way with how strong the neroli is, but it works fantastically. The pepper in here gives it a nice balance. Not a whole lot of money at all. And for the price, about $40 I believe, you get a very solid and heavy bottle. You can see the level through the bottom, by the way. I just wanted to point that out. It is glass you can see through, because obviously you can't see through that. You get a scent which is top-notch, impeccable quality, and performance isn't even that bad either. It's actually pretty decent. I mean, that clicks in with authority. For $40, $45, this is one of the best steals on the market. Next up, we have Low Blue Dissy Pour Homme by Issey Miyake. So we have notes of cypress, juniper berries, rosemary, and cedarwood. This is really nice. So I've talked about this one before. I've also talked about Low Dissy Pour Homme, or Low Blue Dissy Fresh. Is that what it is? Low Blue Dissy Pour Homme Fresh. This is just Low Blue Dissy. I've talked about the other version of this one though as well. I like both of them a lot. What I like so much about this fragrance is it's a summertime scent, but with a completely different approach. It's very aromatic focused, very aromatic based, with all the woods and that sort of thing in here, the herbal notes and stuff. So it's not your typical bergamot, musk, and light woods approach to a summer fragrance, basically. Another one that has a gentlemanly smell in a similar way to the DUNHILL. They don't smell similar, but I'm talking about kind of how it makes me feel and who I would imagine it on. I wouldn't imagine this necessarily on a younger guy, a teenager. More so a guy who's in his, I don't know, mid-20s and above. Just something a bit more mature, a bit more well put together. And it's kind of a diamond in the rough. This line, this brand has so many fragrances, countless flankers and everything. but this is one that I would say is a definite must-have. Definitely check this stuff out. It works great now. It's going to work great years down the road. Next up, we have Lacoste Pour Homme. This is just the original here. Plum, vanilla, and rum are some of the main notes. This is a cheapie, like 20 bucks for 100 milliliters. So it doesn't get much cheaper than that, really. And I've said that before, and yes, there are things that are cheaper than this, price per milliliter wise even. But, you know, it doesn't get much cheaper than this while still being very good. It's kind of what I'm saying. It's a little bit fruity, boozy, fresh. It's a balanced scent. And it's a little bit of everything for everybody because of that balance. Freshness, sweetness, booziness, a little bit of a maturity, a little bit of a playfulness depending on how you're presenting yourself, what you're going to. It's Lacoste Pour Homme. So it's Lacoste for men. No frills, no fancy eau de parfum intense, no Lacoste Pour Homme night. It's just Lacoste for men. And so when I think of a fragrance named like this, I think of something that can do it all, and that's what this one does. 20 bucks, 100 milliliters. This works great now. It worked great when it first came out. It's going to work great years down the road. Let's roll into this one next. Dolce & Gabbana The One Gray. So, you know, the one lineup for me is a fragrance line that I'm always going to hold close to me because the one EDP was one of the first fragrances that I got starting out that opened my world up to things other than aquatics. I started out with aquatics and freshies, and the one EDP was one of the first fragrances that wasn't that. You know, it's a tobacco, amber, cardamom scent, right? Warm, spicy, sweet, and very alluring. So the DNA is always going to have a special place in my heart. While I don't think you need to own every fragrance from Dolce & Gabbana The One lineup, I do think you should own the EDP. I do also think that most should own the One Gray. This is like the most affordable one. I think I've seen it as low as like $40 for 100 milliliters, you know, full presentation, or at least comes with a cap, which is unheard of for the one fragrance. The one EDP is upwards of 60 nowadays, so it's very affordable. It's much more fresh, much more wearable. You know, it's a daytime version. It's a work-friendly version. Not that the one EDP, EDT isn't work-friendly, and not that those aren't going to work great years down the road. Those are also timeless, but this is an option that's a little bit out of the norm for you. It's got vetiver, grapefruit, there is tobacco in here, clary sage. It's a fresh version of the one, just really nice and light, wood's heavy, super wearable, gentlemanly, smells great. So we're going to go over to, I guess it's technically 2021 release, even though it kind of came out this year in 2022. It's DIOR Homme Sport 2021, so that's what they're naming it, but really, at least in the US market, I don't think it was launched until 2022. But regardless, this is one that is brand new, hot off the press, but I can tell that this DNA is going to plant itself into the future for years to come. I think that once this one makes it over to the discounter market, people are going to be going crazy for it. I think this one adds so much to the table, a lot more than DIOR Homme Sport 2017. And, you know, if you look back, or at least for me, if I look back and I think of DIOR Homme Sport 2012, I remember a lot of people loving that one. There's almost kind of a cult following. People love DIOR Homme Sport 2012. And even the 2008, when the 2012 was out, people were always saying, oh, the 2008 is awesome, get that one if you can. I didn't see really the same thing with the 2017. I just think that one kind of, you know, didn't really do as well as anticipated. And so I think that, you know, once this one gets into the discounter market where a lot of the fragrance collectors do their shopping and they're able to get it there, even if it's discounted only by a few bucks, I think this one can go a long way, and I think it's going to do well for years to come. It's got lemon, bergamot, aldehydes. It's fresh, it's sporty, has a little bit of a mature kind of woodiness about it. I've covered this one in a first impressions, and I think I might have done my full review already. But it smells great. It's unlike any other sport fragrance I have. It is so much different to all of the other DIOR Homme Sports, even the 2017. This one, I think they stepped it up here. They did a great job. Something that is modern, but also something that is going to smell great for years down the road. Second to last, we have Prada Luna Rossa, and that's just going to be the original. So I love Prada Luna Rossa, the whole line from the original to sport. I like sport a lot, even though it's kind of like, some people don't like it. I love carbon, I love black. Extreme is amazing, although discontinued, which was a big bummer. They just have a lot of winners in this line. I would say my least favorite would be Prada Luna Rossa O Sport, and just because it was a little bit on the boring side. You know, just wasn't really one that I would wear all that much, but it was the most affordable one, maybe even still is. The point is, a lot of winners in this line. It's easy to get caught up with carbon and black, kind of the two hype monsters of the line. But, you know, it's easy to forget about the original. And I do think that the original still brings a lot to the table. It's got lavender, mint, and bitter orange. Smells great. It is a soapy, clean, gentleman's fragrance. Do you see the trend here? A lot of these are kind of more gentlemanly, and not even necessarily in an old way, like this doesn't smell old. I really don't think any of the fragrances in here smell old, like an old man. That would kind of defeat the purpose of this working years down the road. I think these are always going to smell up to date and refreshing. That's kind of my idea behind this. And same goes with Prada Luna Rossa EDT. It's kind of a flagship. You know, it's the head of the line. This is where this line was started after all. I think even now it works great, and it's going to work great for a long time. So next up we have really a relatively new fragrance line, and actually looking down here at the collection that we have, probably one of the newest fragrance lines that's being born. I would say this one and Lacoste Match Point. Match Point, EDT, EDP. This one has an EDT, an Intense, and a newly announced flanker that is not quite available yet, at least at the time of me shooting this. And of course, this is Tommy Hilfiger Impact. So they have Impact, Impact Intense, and Impact Spark, which was announced that I haven't gotten my hands on yet. And of course, you guys know the whole deal with these. That comes out of there, and now you have a portable, travel-sized thing, which is super cool. Gimmicky for some, cool for others, and I fall into that crowd where I think it is kind of gimmicky, but also I think it's really super cool. And the scent is fantastic as well. Note breakdown is very vague. It's got woody notes, literally, citruses, literally what it says, and amber, and I think there's like a guaiac wood, there's something else, but very vague. Realistically, that is all you need to know. It's a nice, juicy, citrusy opening, a lot of woods, a little bit of sweetness in the dry down. This is something that is so easy to wear, so easy to pull off. I mean, it smells great, and it's also, at least for me, miles ahead of a lot of the other Tommy Hilfiger fragrances in terms of quality, even in terms of composition and uniqueness, in terms of performance, and in terms of presentation. This is really cool. It looks sharp. It has, you know, kind of a different use to it. I love how the bottle looks. And like I said, this is a brand new line. You already know it's Tommy Hilfiger. It's a big designer brand. They're not going to be stopping at 3. This is going to be the very beginning. These are going to keep rolling out. But I think the original here is going to smell great years down the line. It's hard to think about, or it's crazy to think about, that they're going to be putting out so many flankers that this will probably be forgotten about, because some of the other flankers are going to probably get hyped up more. They may go the direction of clones. They may release a really good clone, kind of like Prada with Carbon, right? Carbon's kind of at the flagstone of the line. Everything else, like the original, gets forgotten about. Could be the same thing that happens here, which is crazy to think about and look ahead in the future, but that's how it is. Impact, the original. You heard it here first. This will work great years down the line. Alrighty guys, that's going to do it for me. That is 10 designer fragrances that in my opinion are going to smell great years down the line. If you pick these up now and invest in them now, you're going to be well set no matter how much time goes by. That's going to do it for me. I will link them down below to Discounter so you can pick them up at a price below retail. Make sure to keep them stored properly. Keep them in a room where the temperature stays as consistent as possible. Keep them out of light, direct sunlight. Don't put them in your window. It's bad for them. Keep them out of light. Keep them stored good, and they'll last for years to come. That's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you tomorrow with another one. Take care.